I made over £216,000 in my digital marketing agency in less than 18 months from a standing start. I'm going to show you some real key fundamentals that you need to apply if you're interested in starting a digital marketing agency. But we're not even talking about a digital marketing agency here, not just that. We're going to talk about the fundamentals of business, period. You know, so some real key things of what I'm going to run through today, all right? So I've got my little board right here, okay? We're going to make some notes as we go through. So the first thing of what I'm going to talk about is a very, very, very important skill that if you're not, up to speed with this, then you've got to upskill yourself. Entrepreneurship, a lot of this is about upskilling, areas of where you might not have, great skills at the moment. Let's upskill, let's develop these skills. Yes, at some stage you can maybe outsource some of these things. However, in the beginning, in the early days, we might not have the income, we might not have the money to outsource everything. So that then means that yes, you will need to wear multiple different hats, okay? So let's start off with the first basic fundamental, okay? Right, let's give me 1 sec. Okay, I wonder if you can guess what it is that what I'm writing down right now. Okay, right, the first basic fundamental is, I hope you can read that, yeah? It might be back to front, I hope it's not. But anyway, sales. Look, sales is everything. And look, I don't care if you've heard, I have people come to me, yeah, but Jay, no, I don't need to know sales, Jay, right? I'll tell you the reason why, yeah? Because, I saw something online, yeah? I saw this YouTube guy, yeah? And he said, all you got to do, right, is set up some funnel, yeah? You got to drive some traffic, do some ads, and do this thing, right? And then, then all of a sudden, people come through your funnel, they just buy from you automatically. You don't have to pick up the phone, you don't have to speak to nobody, and now they're paying you thousands of pounds. So what are you talking about, Jay? All right, well, look, good luck with that, yeah? Good luck with that. Because, would you spend thousands of pounds with somebody, unless they've got like a humongous brand and you really recognize the brand really well, but even then, you still want to make sure that your requirements for your business are met in the way that you want them to be. So that then means getting on the phone and speaking to people is going to be an important step of your business. I mean, look, I do a lot of this. I had people joining my program, all the rest of it, of which, yes, I will jump on the phones. Me, myself, I will jump on the phones and I will speak with people. I actually love sales. It's something that I've really upskilled myself over time, developed a real strong passion around selling. Because what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to inspire and influence people to do what it is that you want them to do. So if you go to somebody and say, oh, my name's Jay and I've got a digital marketing agency. I can help you, develop a better online presence, if that's what you're looking for. Like, I don't know, what I could do is I can help with websites and stuff, and and hopefully that would generate you some leads, and so do you want me to get started? Yeah. Now, if you're going with an approach like that, who's going to buy from you? And I know sometimes we might feel uncomfortable. Maybe have some sort of an insecurity around asking people for money. But at the end of the day, if you're going to provide a really good service, you should have no problem with asking people for money. That's the way the world goes round, right? We spend money every single day. And if you've got a really good value-based product of which that's going to add value to their lives, just like lots of the products of what we buy every single day, then why do you feel uncomfortable about asking them for money? So instead of, going with such a, look at the body language, I could do that for you. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to charge you £1,000 a month, yeah, for some social media services and stuff. And, if you want to do, like I say, no one's going to buy. You want to think to yourself, well, who are people going to buy from? People want to be inspired. Right, okay, look, I'll tell you what, look, you got our website. What we can do is we can help your website, increase the conversions by as much as 20%. So in which case, if you want lead generation, as your business, for your business, you want to be making sales, you want leads. So what we do is we specialize in helping you generate the leads, but we're not just talking about any lead here. We're talking about really good quality targeted leads. So let's just say, for example, look at the amount of traffic we're going to be able to get you based on these keywords, for example, okay? So even if we're able to get you an extra 50 people a week to your website every single month, so 10% of that traffic then becomes leads, for example, so we're just saying about 5 leads, okay? But out of those 5 leads, you're now able to close one of those leads, and your product is £2,000, for example, So what we're going to do as a digital marketing agency is we're going to make sure you get those leads. We're going to make sure you get those leads. Of course, you're going to then have to do the conversions and the selling, but we're going to make sure you get the leads that are coming directly through to you. So if you're able to convert one of our leads a week, that is going to give you an additional £2,500 a week, and of course over a month, that is an extra £10,000 a month for you in your back pocket. What do you think? So what I'm saying is, everyone, is from a sales perspective, we want to be able to really show the value around what your service can offer. Don't lead with, I can build your website. No one gives a damn. My friend of a friend, their brother's girlfriend's cat owner, sister, friend, they can build me a website, all right? I'll get them to build me a website, So, people don't give a damn that you can build them a website. People don't give a damn about, the fact that you can do social media, you can do this, you can do that. People care about the result. So that then means that you've got to lead with the result. That's really important. The result of what you're going to be able to do for them, okay? Remember as well, people buy from people, okay? In fact, I'm going to make a note of that, Okay, so people buy from people, okay? Let's make a note of that, okay? Right. Okay, so people buy from people, all right? So that then means that if you're a likable person, so as a part of the whole sales process, if you are a likable person, then people will want to work with you because they like you. We do business and we exchange money with people that typically, a lot of the time that we like, especially when it's like a service-based business. I have an accountant. I like my accountant. I have a PA. I like my PA. I have, marketing people that do some of my marketing for me. The guy that's going to be chopping up this video and put this out there. I like this guy. I like him. So there's elements of their personalities that we like. So you've got to come across like a likable person when we're doing our sales. All right. Very, very, very crucial. Okay. Selling is everything. And yes, even if you're doing online sales, if you've got a business where you're just doing online sales, well, look, even if we don't have to get on the phone with them, if you've got a much lower price point or whatever it may well be, the sales copy, people still need to be feeling inspired, influenced, like, if I get this, it can help me change my life. That's why we buy so many of these gimmicky things out there, lose, 10 kilos in 10 minutes. That sounds great, because they're inspired, by the content, by the copy, or, make all this money within a short period of time. People love that because, again, they're inspired by the copy. For me, I'm not a big fan of all this get rich quick, or all you got to do is this, and, in 10 minutes you can lose 10 kilos. Because it's gimmick, it's not real. There's an element, for me that it feels it's a bit scammy, to be honest with you. So I'm not a big fan. But that's the reason why people buy stuff like that, because they are inspired. All right? Okay, right. Let's move on. Something else of what we want to focus on. Another key fundamental is networking. Okay, to network. Who's in your network? All right? We love the idea of marketing. You got Jay, I just want to do this thing on Facebook, right? All right, great. But look, I want to show you how you can build a business quickly, okay? Get out there, start making money as soon as you possibly can. So a way of doing that is to get out and network, okay? So here we go, we've got network on here, okay? So we've got sales, and remember, people buy from people, but networking, all right? I hope you can read my writing there, but networking, all right? So why is that important, okay, to network? if you don't know very many businesses at the moment that could require your services, networking is a great way of you getting out there. Remember, it's people, it's face to face. There are loads of networking groups, I'm a big fan of meetup.com. I've been using meetup.com for years. I use it as a marketing platform, but as well as that, to go to lots of different networking events, okay? And look, meetup is worldwide, and you'll see lots of different entrepreneurial events of what you can go to. So, you will go to places like this and start networking, start building friendships, start building relationships with people. Because remember, people want to do business with people who they know, like, and trust. So at a networking meeting, you get the opportunity to speak with people. Yes, you hand out your business cards and stuff like that. But most importantly, you get to now start building those connections, okay? So remember, we've already spoken about sales, all right? So sales is very, very, very important. So we've already spoken about that. So in addition to you now networking, you're now applying your great sales technique, within your networking events. But I don't mean you go to these networking events and just start trying to sell. No. We've got to master the art of indirect selling, okay? Indirect selling. I do this all of the time, right? I could be on holiday, I get talking to somebody, I'm indirectly selling, what it is that we do, as a business. For example, not directly in their face, they won't even know that they're being sold to. You just plant some seeds in their mind, and before you know it, oh, that sounds quite interesting. So say, for example, you go to one of these networking events and you say, you meet people, and they're in business, and they say, oh, what do you do? Instead of me saying, oh, yeah, well, I build websites here, and I do some social media, and I help digital marketing, I help with digital marketing types of things, and, all this type of stuff. Instead of doing that, we're going to go and we're going to say, okay, I help, businesses, increase their lead generation by 25% in the first month, something like that, or something that is obviously, a little bit more thought out, okay? But you're gonna lead with the result. That's what you do. And then when they now say, oh, okay, so what do you do? Well, I run a digital marketing agency. We specialize in lead generation. We do this, we do that. We help with increasing conversions and blah, 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 okay? So you're indirectly selling. Then people say, oh, that sounds pretty interesting, I wonder if you could maybe help me. Yeah, I can help you. Yeah, I'm sure I can, yeah? And then you take their card or you take their number, right? You don't just give them your card or give them your number and then expect people to now give you a call. You take their information, all right? And then once you take their information, you can then call them. You force the issue. I see this all the time. Yeah, but Jay, no. Yeah, no, they took my details. Yeah, they're going to come back to me. When they're going to come back to you? Well, I don't know. He said maybe, maybe before the end of the week, he might come back to me. Right, really? Well, yeah, he's got to talk to his wife and he's got to do this first. And I think he said that he's got to do something down in he's got to go on holiday real quick. It's taking a couple of days away. And then when he comes back though, Jay, no, he's going to call me. Come on, this guy ain't calling you. This man or woman, they ain't calling you, okay? You take their details so that you can then force the issue. You can then call them. And if when you call them, they don't answer, guess what? You call again maybe a day later. Or you send them a text message or something like that, asking when's going to be the best time to have a call. Things like that. If they don't get back to you, you give them, you wait a few days, you give them a call. Basically, give them a call until they tell you, all right, stop calling me. Yeah, don't call me anymore. Okay, you've got to be persistent. It's really important. You've got to be persistent. Just because they haven't responded straight away doesn't mean that they don't need you or don't want you. So don't always take that as a rejection. Yeah, we've got to just take that as, look, it just is that person might be busy. They might have other things going on, whatever the reason may well be. But you know what? Chances are, if you keep on following up, then hopefully we get through to them. The key is about following up. Probably 60 to 70% of my business comes through follow-up, okay? So making sure that you follow up is really, really, really important, okay? Some of the things of what we're scared of, when we're going out networking and when we're selling and stuff like that, we're scared of rejection, all right? Yeah, but what if they don't like, what if they don't want it? What if they don't like what it is that I've got to offer? What if they don't like me? What if this? What if that? You know what? Unfortunately, we've got to get used to rejection, okay? It is a part of the game. What you've got to always remember that nothing is ever personal. Let's stop taking it so personally. You know, it's like, oh, well, you know, they don't like me. They don't want to buy from me. Oh, shit, I must be fucking so terrible. Shit, God, they don't fucking buy from me. You know, forget all of that shit, right? You don't need to be like that, okay? It is what it is. You know, it's probably, all right, it could have been down to your sales technique. You might not have done a good enough job in showing them that, you know, that you are the right person to work with. It might be the case, but so what? At least you get the opportunity to learn and even ask them. You know, look, do you mind if you wait maybe a couple of days? Do you mind if I just ask you why you're not moving ahead with me? You know, why not? You know, what is it? And get that feedback. There's nothing wrong with that, because the more feedback you get, remember, feedback's never really personal. It's not personal to you. You know, like, no one really knows you. They don't know what you're like at home. They don't know what you're like as a parent. They don't know what you're like as a husband or a spouse, whatever it may well be. Yeah, they don't know you. So it's not personal to you. We've got to get used to this stuff. You know, yes, all right, networking. We have to have some confidence, you know, to get out there and start speaking to people, you know, because, you know, that person like that, well, you know, I'm just here. I'm just, you know, I'm just checking it out, just seeing what's going on. And, you know, look, okay, look, I'm not saying that you have to be this massive extrovert and I'm not saying you have to be like that, you know. However, you know, being that person that, you know, gets noticed will be the person that gets to business, and that's it. It's as simple as that. So if you're like, well, I'm just trying to get a bit of business. Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit of business, you know, and I just don't know, like, you know, well, it's the first time I've been here, and I just don't know, like, you know, it's a big world. It's a big world out here, yeah. I can't guarantee you're going to get a business. Whereas if you're like, right, yeah, hello, my name is Jay Hastings, and I'll tell you what we do. You know, we do lead generation for businesses, but we don't just focus on that. We focus on really increasing conversions by as much as 25%, you know, within the next 30 days. You know, we work with lots of different businesses. So in which case, if you're interested, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll take your details, blah, 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 blah. That person versus, well, you know, you know, you could probably see who's going to win the business. So if we do need to, you know, really build our confidence, you know, there's ways, there's coaches out there. There's something called Toastmasters, where you can get up on stages and speak and all this type of stuff to build your confidence, okay? Remember, this is nothing but psychology. Your confidence and all these types of things, it's all based on how you feel about yourself. So, you know, if you think that you're a confident person, then that's what probably the world is going to see, is your confidence, okay? However, if there's an element of insecurity based on, well, what are they going to say? What are they going to do? What if this? What if that? What if this? Again, you know, we're going to see that. You know, confidence is only but a mindset. That's the reason why I teach so much on mindset. You know, a lot of the other videos, a lot of the other training of what it is that we do, it's all based around mindset, because mindset is everything. Mindset is who you are going to be when it comes down to your business. All right. So networking is also very, 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 very crucial. Following up. In fact, I'm going to make a note of that as well, because that is so important. So follow up. Okay. So following up is also very, very, very important. Okay, now look, the last thing of what we're going to talk about, yeah, that helped me make £216,000 in 18 months, and that is having some form of credibility. So, you know, we're really good at sales now, right? We recognize that people buy from people, yeah? We're going out networking, yeah? Yes, you know, we love the idea of online marketing and that sort of thing, but that will form a part of your marketing plan, okay? That's secondary. I'm trying to get you out there to be making this type of income within 18 months, okay? Some of the online marketing funnels, you know, we have to, you know, put out content, do some ads, test the ad, see what's going to convert. That converts, you know, now lead generation, etc., etc. You know, that can work really, really, really well. But like I say, to just get out there, really start making yourself known to people. Remember, people also know other people that they can refer you to, you know, so referrals are absolutely huge as well. So that's massive, okay? That's really going to help you to really get moving very, very, very quickly, okay? Now, the final thing of what I'm going to cover today, and that is credibility. You know, you've got to be able to show people that you are the person to work with. So yes, we speak a good game. However, let me have a look over your website. You know, so your website needs to look the part, for example, because your website is your online shop. Okay, so I can see on your website you look really good. Okay, is there any other people that you've ever worked with? Now look, believe it or not, when I first got started, I worked with some clients for free. All right. I wanted to start working with lawyers, okay? And there was a company in central London that I had been doing some networking with, and I basically got talking to the owner of that company. Now, because I'm brand new, I'm still just trying to make some money, just try and get out here, let's try and do this thing, right? So, I said to him, look, I'll tell you what, I'm going to do some videos for you for free. Now he was quite a young lawyer, quite a young barrister, and he kind of got it. He understood where the market is going. Okay, this is a while ago, but he understood where the market was going. So they agreed, So I did some business. I did their videos. I just done a few videos for them. I was using some of these software tools. You know what it's like nowadays. It's not very difficult to make videos, okay? So I was just using this software tool. There was one called Animoto that used to be really good, like a little slideshow, add some music, blah, blah, blah. And it looked good, right? It looked really good. So I did that with them for free. But I said, if I do this for you for free, I can put this out on social media for you and all the rest of it. I just need you to refer me to 2 other, people in business that might also benefit from my service. So for free, I then got another 2 clients out of that for doing that for free, okay? However, that client that I started off working for free, they then said, oh, this is good, Jay. This is not bad. It's not bad. Do you do websites, Jay? Yeah, I can do a website. Oh, yeah, good. All right, Jay, can you also do search engine optimization? Yeah, I can do it all. I can do it all, yeah? So before you knew it, that company had paid me about £18,000, in the first 12 months. They paid me 18 grand to do their website, to do their social media, to do their SEO, to do videos for them. So they paid me a very decent amount of money, and they also got a great return, all right? So, that is a great way of just getting out there. However, one of the first things of what they wanted to look at was my website. So when they wanted to check my credibility, okay? So let's make a note of that. Credibility. And as a result of me doing that work with them straight away, I was able to get testimonials. They then referred me to other people, of which I then did some work for them. They then also gave me testimonials. Yeah. So I then asked them to refer me on to others. Everyone then starts giving me testimonials. So before you know it, I got testimonial after testimonial, but I started working with my first client for free. People don't want to tell you, but Jay, but that's free. Well, yeah, I just want to get my foot in the door. Sometimes we've got to drop the ego a little bit, and it's like, well, hang on a minute, you've never worked with anyone before. So let's drop the ego a little bit, and it's like, well, what value can we show people that we can offer? Because we're just getting started. I'm not always saying you have to do free, you might do half price or whatever, but whatever deal you can come up with that is attractive for them and they don't mind giving you a shot. So that then allows you to have the credibility. So now look. So on our list, okay, so on the list, right? We're now really good at selling. So we understand that we lead with the result of what we are going to get for people, okay? So we're good at selling now, right? We recognize that people buy from people, so we're going to be likable, okay? We're going to understand this. We're going to understand that people buy from people. So, it's important for me to be a likable person. I'm not going to start sharing too many views, my worldly view about, about wars around the world. What do I think about Andrew Tate? What do I think about this, that? I'm not going to go into too much of that, because at this stage, we're just trying to be likable. We don't want to be too controversial. You just want to grow your business, yeah? I'm not saying don't be yourself, but you want to grow your business, so you just want to be a little bit neutral. Somebody said to me the other day about a controversial speaker online, and I just said, look, I don't really have much of an opinion. I do have an opinion, but I don't want to get into all of that with somebody that I've only just met. I want to do some business with them. I've only just met them, and my strong views on this and that, it might then mean that it now, our relationship suffers in some way because of my views and their views, her views, and all this stuff. I didn't want to get into all of that. Yeah, likable, surface, be a nice guy, be a nice lady, that's you, yeah? So, we're good at sales, we understand about people buy from people, okay?
Right. Networking. We also get the fact of how important networking is. You know, there are lots of networking meetings out there. Yes, we all just want to sit behind a computer, do all this marketing stuff and just have leads flying through. I'm not saying we're not going to get to that. Okay, that is not going to form a part of our marketing, but to just get out there, get your first customers, get your first clients, get out there and start networking. Now, remember, when we're networking, we are going to be taking people's details. We're taking the information from them. We're not always going to just be handing over and expecting people to be calling us. We are going to force the issue, so we're going to take their details. And then what we're going to do is we are going to follow up, okay? We're going to follow up, all right? That's really, really, really important. Now, in addition to that, we also realize that we need to have credibility. Okay, so, you know, if we have to work with some people for free or for a lower price point, whatever it may well be, if that's what we got to do, then that's what we do, just so that we can now start building credibility. So when people check out your website, people can see that you've worked with that person, that person, that person, that person, that person, and they have all had a very good result, a very good outcome of working with you. And they've now, you know, been able to leave your testimonials saying that, okay? Now we've got £216,000 in 18 months. Yeah, using that strategy right there. You know, look, I like high ticket products. You know, I'm probably not going to sell pens like this for like, you know, 25p, you know, 25 cents, you know, because it's like, well, how many of these do I need to sell before I now start making some really good money? You know, I'm not, of course, people do it, of course. And I'm not saying that people don't go on to make lots of money doing that, you know, but they're going after volume, mass volume. Whereas I know that, look, if you've got something high ticket, you network with the right people, you're good at sales, you've got a good product, recognize that people buy from people, and you've got, you know, results to show that you can do this, why are they not going to want to work with you? Why don't they want to work with you? So again, this is it, £216,000 in 18 months. Remember, this is not just about building a digital marketing agency. You apply this to whatever business you're thinking about doing, you know, and by you doing so, again, you can start getting some really good results quickly. You can go to a networking meeting today, get talking to some people today, and then before you know it, they're interested in using your services. It can be as straightforward as that, all right? Okay, look, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to smash a like, subscribe if you haven't done already, okay? And I'll look forward to seeing you on the next video.